Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and today I've got another video for you using the Dainty Delight bundle, but today we're not actually going to be using the stamps on the front of our card. We might use one on the inside, but not on the front. So as I promised you in my previous video using this bundle, today we're going to be using just the dies. So I'm going to move that gorgeous stamp set to one side and I'm going to show you the dies. So we are, for the minute, unless I change my mind what I'm doing, which often does happen, we're going to be using these two dies. So this is the sort of leafy frond, I suppose you'd call it, almost like a vine actually, and this is the die that cuts, oh, hopefully you can see that okay, 4 small flowers. So although it's on one die, it cuts them out individually. Okay, so they're the dies that we're going to be using today. I'm just going to flick out the bit in there before I forget. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've done all the die cutting so that you don't have to watch me winding the machine backwards and forwards, just putting it together. So I'm going to remove this, and as if by the magic of television, here we have our die cut pieces. So these are my 2 sets of leaves and these are my flowers. So because that one die has 4 flowers on the one die, 3 passes and you've got 12 flowers, which I'm hoping is going to be enough to go around these leaves, but I may have to cut some more if not. So my base card is a standard C6 card, so that is half of an A4 sheet in the UK, half of a letter size if you're in the USA or anywhere else that uses that size, and it's literally scored in half. So for the UK, that's half a sheet, scored at 14.8, folded, and this time, instead of a portrait card, which we made last time, we're going to make a landscape card. So what I wanted to do, I had a look through my embossing folders because I really like to use an embossing folder where I can. They just add that little extra bit of texture and detail. So I've gone for the brick embossing folder, so hopefully you can see that, because I thought this would look quite nice as if it was growing against a wall. So I've run my piece of basic white, and this piece is 10 by 14.3. I've run that through the embossing folder in my stamp and emboss machine, but I know people do have a white wall sometimes, but it's not usually that white, is it? So what I thought we'd do is just add a little bit of shading to that, and for that I've bought out the pale papaya. I was really sad when our terracotta ink retired. We had terracotta tile, was one of the couple of sets ago actually, in colours, and that was perfect for brick walls. So keeping my fingers crossed, there might be something that's similar in the new catalogue. Now this is a bit more peachy, but hopefully it'll do us the same turn. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a little try on my grid paper, and it'll just give it that light sort of terracotta colour. And I'm not going to be thinking about covering every single inch of it, because I want it to look like a bit of a distressed wall. So I'm just using a blending brush. Now this isn't a Stampin' Up one, but new to the spring catalogue are some small Stampin' Up blending brushes. I've got the big ones and they're absolutely fantastic, so I've got no reason to think why the small ones won't be, and they will be going on an order for myself. But for now I've already got these ones, so there were other things that I needed to order or wanted to order. Okay, so I'm just concentrating most of the ink on the round the edge of that, but we don't want it too dark because these aren't necessarily colours that I would put together, but I just wanted to take that stark whiteness away. So let's have a look and see how bad it is. Do you know what, actually, because these 2 colours, the pale papaya and the fresh freesia, which the base card is, are from the set of ink colours that came out last year, so they will retire this summer when the new annual catalogue comes out. But because they're from that same colour group, they do actually work quite well together. Well, I think they do anyway. Okay, so that's going to be our base, so I'm going to attach that. Now I often find that Tombow is, well, you all know if you listen to my videos that I think Tombow is the bee's knees anyway, and it is, especially good for attaching embossing folders, because the side that we're sticking down is actually the debossed side. And I find that things like a tape runner don't always go deep enough into the texture. Okay, so let's stick our brick wall on. Make sure we get that straight, and the border around the edge. If you're using one of our dry embossing folders, always use it with the label that says Stamping Up on the front, and that way you'll get the right way round. Okay, so now we've got our leaves. Now, what I was going to do was be clever and use some of our adhesive sheet, but I went ahead and cut them and forgot to stick it on the back of the cardstock. But if you struggle with getting small amounts of glue onto the back of something like this, then adhesive sheet is the way to go. So what the plan is to use these to make an oval. And I think that's going to work. As soon as I saw the dies that went with this stamp set, that was the first thing that I wanted to try. And I think there we go. I think we can get that quite nicely round onto the card and tuck the ends in under the leaves. So let's put our first one on. And I'm going to use my Tombow. And I'm just going for tiny, oh, well, if it's coming out, tiny bits onto the backs of the leaves. Now you could do them all. I don't really think you need to do all of them, but if you like to make sure your things are super secure, then just put a tiny dot on the back of each one. Now you could use our fine tip glue pen to do this. I just find that, especially with things like embossing folders, that the Tombow actually grips quicker than the fine tip glue, which is a clear glue. I don't know why it does, but it does. Okay, so that's one set of leaves, and we're just going to pick these up. So if I'd have remembered to use the adhesive sheet, all I'd have had to do was peel the backing off. Okay, so let's get our first sheet lined up. If you get a little bit of glue onto the card front where you don't want it, you can let it dry and then use a glue rubber. Sadly, we don't sell these anymore. We used to, but this is what they look like, and you can pick them up from other craft websites. They're great for getting off little bits of glue, but you do need to let it dry first. I'm just giving that a press down to make sure that's gripped. So I've just got the tiniest little bit here that's squidged out. I don't know if you can see that if I hold it up to the camera. Don't think you can, but it is very slightly shiny. Now, the thing with Tombow is that it is meant to be a repositional glue as well as just sticking stuff down. So when it's dry, it remains tacky, so you can use it as for repositionable things. So you do need to get it off. Right, and then our second one is going to fit in underneath there. Now what I am going to do is this end here will cover up the stalk on our top one, but what I'm going to do is just snip off, I think, part of the stalk. Don't ever be afraid to snip bits off. I'm just going to cut it a little bit, so hopefully we can tuck it in and make it look like it's growing from there to complete our circle, our oval. Right, so let's pop some glue on the back of that. Equally, this could be cut into several sections if you needed to, wanted to use it as a leaves to put behind something. That's the beauty of having this all on one die, because it's obviously quite a large length, which does make it ideal for chopping up to add smaller detail. Okay, so I'm just going for the bigger leaves, and I'll show you in a minute. This die actually also puts a little bit of detail into the leaves. I don't know if you can see there, it's got a little bit of, hopefully if I hold that up you can see there, look, it's got a little bit of embossing onto it, and the die that we cut the flowers out with does the same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in there, and we want it to look like that vine is continuing. So it almost looks like it's grown in one oval. So I'm just going to hold that down for a few seconds. Now for this next bit, I think I'll find it easier with my tweezers. So these are the flowers that we've cut on that one die, and they come in different sizes. Just going to try and find you a tiny one. There's the tiny one. Oops, it's stuck to my fingers there. So hopefully you can see the embossed detail on those as well. And what we're going to do, we're going to add those round on our vine. So I find the easiest way to do this, again, Tombow, you'll be fed up of hearing about it, won't you? And hold the flower in my tweezers and then just use a little tiny piece of Tombow on the back. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying not to get the Tombow on your tweezers. I'm going around with the bigger flowers first to try and get the big ones in first. Oops. I find it hard to do random, so and also we can use one there and there to cover up those the joins. Basically, we've been teaching the children that I look after this week about symmetry, so as I said, I find it really hard to do just sort of random. My brain works, I'm left-handed, it must be something to do with that. My brain works to want to do it in an organised way. Okay, so this is our last big one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now part of me almost doesn't want to stick this other big one on, because part of me is thinking, well, actually, is it going to unbalance it? But I will go for it. You should ideally use odd numbers. And I seem to have lost somehow. I seem to have 5 big ones, 4 middle-sized ones. Oh, actually, no, that's a different size, because we ran that die through 3 times. I seem to have lost one of the tiny ones. That is the only trouble with walking with die cuts from your machine to your desk. Okay, so we'll go with that one there, I think. And then we're on to the 3 smaller ones we've got. Now, they sort of lend themselves to be grouped, I think. So we're going to pop that one under there, like that. Get another one. It is handy just to be able to run that through. I'll go under there for this one. Run that through once and cut 4 flowers. Okay, and we've got one more of those little ones. As I said, we ran it through 3 times. Now, I've used one of the smaller ones there without really realising, but it's fine. As I said, it doesn't have to be entirely symmetrical. But we do have to get the flowers the right way round, and at the minute I'm holding that wrong. So we're going to pop that one under there, I think. So they look like they're growing in a cluster. Now, I should have a 3rd one of these little teeny tiny ones, but I've obviously dropped that or knocked it off the die cutting machine, but that's fine. So what we can do, they're like a little bud, aren't they? So we can go over in between the leaves, so they look like they're growing on a join, which is where you would normally get flowers growing. Okay, so where's this one going to go? I think we've got a collection here, a collection here, collection there. I think we need to pop this one over here. So turn your card around. Don't worry about trying to turn the tweezers around, otherwise you might be tying your arms in knots. Turn your card around to get it where you want it. Okay, so that's all our little flowers on. Now, I could very, very easily run that through 4 times and have 16 flowers to glue on, but I'm actually quite happy with it like that. But what I do feel it needs is a little bit of gemmage. So let's have a look and see what I've got that we can pop on. Don't want red, do we? I sort of feel like hang on, what have we got here? Oh, these might do quite nicely. These are the fine sparkle adhesive back gems. Now you'll have to forgive me if anything I'm using here is out of date, is retired, sorry, because I like to make sure that I use all my gems up. But these look very much like their pale papaya. So yeah, they're not going to look right in the middles of the flowers because they're too big, these ones. But I think what we'll do is just have a little dottage of those around. So we'll go for one there, one there. Who doesn't have sparkles on their walls, hey? And then there's some little diddy ones here. I think we're just gonna abandon the whole middles of the flowers thing, because that would be my natural instinct, is to stick something sparkly in the middle of the flower. And oh, this one's not playing ball, and we're just going to go for a little bit of dottage on our wall. Okay, so I'm quite pleased with that. That's come out quite nice. That idea has been floating around in my head since we had the pre-order. So there are also some mint macaron. I'm guessing that's either Bermuda Bay or, yeah, it's too dark for pool party. I think that might be Tahitian Tide, actually. And then there's these look like sweet sorbet or polished pink. Either way, very pretty. Okay. And as I said, because these flowers have got that little bit of embossing in the middle, I don't think they need a gem in the middle. Okay, and then what we need to do is in the inside of our card, and it's always nice to have something stamped on the inside. So we are going to pull out, I think we might go for this one. Just grab a block. So if any of you haven't actually come across our kits yet, the stamping kits that we sell, they're not actually in the catalogue. You have to look online for the kits. They come with, the stamping ones come with a mini stamping spot, the stamp set, all the bits and pieces you need to make the cards. But they also come with these thin blocks, which are really handy for after you've made your kit for stamping. So because we've got pale papaya on the front of our card, I think we're going to stamp this in pale papaya as well. I'm just inking that up, and I think we're just going to stamp it there on that left hand side, and then it just looks like some little buds, just to add a little bit of colour. So yeah, when I finish my kits, I always take the blocks out and keep them for classes and things like that, because it's always handy to have spare blocks. And if you're anything like me, I tend to end up with about 10 blocks all over my desk with different stamps on, because I tend to stamp, remount, and then clean everything at the end. Okay, so that's our inside. And again, I haven't added a greeting because I like to do it when I know who's going to receive the card. But you could equally use one of the smaller greetings, like the Celebrate You would be perfectly sized. Let me just pull it out and show you. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? There. So the Celebrate You would fit really nicely in the middle there. So obviously I'm just laying the stamp in so you can see. And you could either cut around the outside of that, or you could stamp it on a small label, and that would fit in there quite nicely. But again, I will do that when I know who that is going to. So there's our card. So that didn't actually, apart from the stamping inside, that's actually got no stamping on it at all. And it didn't really take that long to do the die cutting, thanks to that die that cuts those 4 flowers. Oh, I tell you what I think we do need. We've got a little bit of sparkle on there, so let's just have a little bit more. We'll just add a bit of Wink of Stella, and all I'm doing is flicking that over onto the card, and then when it dries, it'll just, I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, you can pick up how lovely and sparkly those gems are. Look, Oh, there you go. You can get a little bit of the wink of Stella, and that'll just add a little bit of something to our brick wall, I think. Okay, so that's that card completed. I'll be back soon with some more cards for you, and I'll be using another celebration set in the next video, so watch out for that. I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching, and happy stamping. Bye for now.